At the beginning of this year, after years of turmoil, the trade and cooperation agreement between the EU and Great Britain came into force provisionally. In the UK, it was ratified in record time. The vast majority of MPs are unlikely to have even read the law. In the EU, a final ratification by the EU Parliament is still pending. A date for the vote has not yet been set, which is also due to the various diplomatic entanglements that will be discussed in this video. But first, a few words about the death of Prince Philip, the consort of Britain's long-term Queen Elizabeth II. This may seem confusing at first, but it is necessary, because the prince's demise is symbolic of the growing political instability in Great Britain, for which Brexit is also an important symptom. Entire generations grew up with Elizabeth II as the British head of state. She has accompanied the fate of the British state since the end of the Second World War. This era will inevitably come to an end in the years to come. Whoever succeeds her from the royal family will preside over Great Britain, whose days seem increasingly numbered to a growing layer of observers. With the announcement of the death of Prince Philip, all British television networks immediately switched to round-the-clock coverage of the prince's life and legacy. Students were asked to forego their favorite programs and instead show patriotic grief. But these appeals fell on barren ground. According to a report by the Daily Guardian, 2/3 of all viewers switched off on the BBC Two TV station alone when they noticed that no program was to be expected that evening except for royal reporting. At the same time, the complaints about this forced happiness shot up to unprecedented heights. The state decreed state mourning, but only small parts of the people mourned. Despite the mixed weather, many preferred to visit the outdoor dining areas of the recently reopened pubs. This, too, is a symptom of the ongoing crisis in the British establishment, which is far from over with the official completion of Brexit. In the 3 months since the trade agreement with the EU came into force provisionally, hardly a week has passed in Great Britain without a scandal. In England, the police are discredited more than they have been in a long time due to a series of sexist incidents and violent attacks. A protest movement has developed against them, which is not expected to abate for the time being. At the same time, the government introduced a law in the House of Commons which is supposed to give the police far-reaching rights to dissolve peaceful protests and rallies. In Scotland, the incumbent First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and her predecessor Alex Salmond are engaged in a mud fight in the middle of the election campaign, in which there are allegations of sexual assault against the Salmond and abuse of office against Sturgeon. Regardless, Sturgeon persistently calls for a new independence referendum to be held should the independence camp win an absolute majority in the Scottish Regional Parliament elections in May. Of course, the trouble between her and Salmond is cleared in Parliament, but it was there. And meanwhile, the British central government has placed the northwest English city of Liverpool under forced administration because the Labour Party ruling there has been too colourful and too obvious with rampant corruption. But the government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson is also grappling with allegations of corruption. A lobbying scandal is brewing around the former Prime Minister David Cameron. And Cameron is said to have tried on behalf of the recently collapsed financial group Greensill Capital to obtain advantageous bills from the government for the company. I made a video on that one. Corresponding SMS messages to Cameron's finance minister Rishi Sunak, among others, have seen the light of day in the past few days. All of this is taking place against the backdrop of the COVID-19 crisis, which, despite the relative success of the UK vaccination campaign, is far from over. So it is perhaps no wonder that things seem relatively calm on the subject of Brexit. After all, by signing the trade agreement, Boris Johnson has kept his key election promise to do Brexit. But does he really have that? A quick look at Northern Ireland shows that the effects of the new trade treaty with the EU are only just beginning to show. The trade agreement has moved parts of the EU's external borders from the Republic of Ireland to the cargo ports along the northern Irish coast. Anyone wishing to export food or live animals from Great Britain to Northern Ireland must now fill out documents and undergo controls. Northern Ireland will remain largely integrated into the European internal market even after Brexit. A hard border between the north and the Republic of Ireland in the south was avoided. But the political price for this is not yet foreseeable, as the unrest in various Protestant or Loyalist residential areas of the past few days shows. As early as February, import controls at Northern Irish ports such as Larne or Belfast were temporarily suspended due to alleged threats from Unionists and Loyalist paramilitary groups. In March, the Loyalist Communities Council, a legally operating frontline organization of Loyalist paramilitary groups, finally terminated the Good Friday Agreement signed in 1998 as a peace treaty for Northern Ireland. The DUP, the party to which Northern Ireland's Prime Minister Arlene Foster belongs, has meanwhile launched a boycott campaign against the trade agreement. The British government was forced to suspend the import and export regulations governed by the treaty for Northern Ireland. This in turn led the EU to announce infringement proceedings against the UK. Because of the situation, the EU Parliament has not yet ratified the trade agreement. There, the UK is required to comply with the contractual provisions. Small or medium-sized exporters are overwhelmed by the situation. Overall, economic analysts believe that it's still too early to draw up a serious balance sheet or to draw up prospects for the economic development of post-Brexit Great Britain. It's true that trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain and between the EU and the UK collapsed massively in January. In the meantime, however, the numbers have partly recovered. Nevertheless, especially small and medium-sized exporters seem overwhelmed by the situation and are sometimes thinking about a complete end to their cross-border trade, or have already done that. According to the British Association of Small Businesses, 11% of all association members are said to have such considerations. The long-term effects of Brexit on the City of London are also open. Financial groups and their services are not part of the commercial contract. So far, the EU has granted British banks very few and, of course, temporary equivalence rights on their territory. The negotiations on the subject are difficult. So far, both sides have not gotten much further than agreeing to meet on a regular basis. Thousands of financial jobs have now emigrated from London to cities like Amsterdam or Paris. However, this is not yet a mass exodus. An important positive aspect of the trade agreement from the perspective of the British government is the possibility of deviating from EU procedures and standards on issues of government subsidies and regulations, at least on the British main island. The only downer is Northern Ireland once again. Here this is only possible to a very limited extent as the region continues to orient itself towards the European internal market. Regardless of this, future plans are being forged in London in the form of 10 new free ports, which are to be built at various coastal towns in Great Britain. These free ports are an idea that the Tories have long cherished. In 2016, the incumbent Finance Minister Rishi Sunak wrote an essay entitled "The Free Ports Opportunity" for the think tank Centre for Policy Studies. In it, Sunak, who at the time was still a simple member of the House of Commons, claimed that the EU was preventing the introduction of such free ports, which is a lie, and that this was an argument in favor of Brexit. EU member states do have free ports, so that is obviously a lie. The introduction of free ports could create 86,000 jobs, he wrote. In March of this year, Sunak announced the first steps towards new free ports in his budget speech. Shipping companies and logistics companies should be able to get numerous discounts through them. These include the abolition of property taxes for infrastructure, such as warehouses. an extensive abolition of social security contributions for companies, and the abolition of numerous tax and customs obligations. While the Association of British Port Authorities sees transformative potential for the British economy here, trade unions are sounding the alarm. For example, the transport workers. Internal union RMT holds the planned free ports for junk shops for multinational corporations, which must be combated. Brexit, as such, is officially over, but the deep cracks in the fabric of Great Britain remain, and the discussions with the EU will remain for years. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.